I pretended to be broke to see who in my family actually cared. It started as a social experiment, but it turned into something I couldn't control. When I got my promotion last year, it felt like a small miracle. After years of low pay and extra hours, I finally had financial stability. I was proud of myself. But when I told my family, their reactions weren't what I expected. My brother immediately joked about borrowing money. My cousin texted me about investing in his new business idea, which was just him flipping sneakers online. Even my mom smiled and said, "Now you can help out a little more." No one said congratulations. Just finally. At first, I brushed it off. They weren't bad people, just used to leaning on me. I was the dependable one, the one who showed up with cash when rent was late or when someone needed a car repair. But over time, it began to eat at me. Every time my phone buzzed, it wasn't to ask how I was. It was a request, a favor, a loan. I started wondering, if I lost everything tomorrow, would they still call? Would they still care if I couldn't give them anything? That thought stuck with me. One night, after sending my brother yet another temporary transfer, I decided to find out. For 3 months, I pretend I was broke. No handouts, no loans, no unnecessary spending. I told them my rent had gone up, that work had been cutting hours, that I might even need to move back home soon. I expected sympathy. I expected concern. What I got was silence. My brother didn't even ask if I was okay. He just sighed and said, "Man, that sucks," before asking if I could still pay him back for the car insurance. My cousin stopped texting altogether. My mom checked in once, not to ask about me, but to complain about how stressful it was living with her new husband and how it must be nice not to have responsibilities. The only person who noticed something was wrong was my aunt. She called one night, said my voice sounded tired, and brought over groceries the next day without saying a word about it. No guilt, no questions, just soup and company. For a while, I felt guilty for lying. But the more I watched, the more I realized the lie wasn't the problem. It was the truth that scared me. My family didn't miss me. They missed what I could provide. When that dried up, so did their affection. I'd always told myself that helping them was proof of love. But maybe it was just a way to earn it. Still, part of me hoped things would change. That someone would show up, ask if I needed help, offer a meal or a little comfort. But the calls never came. I was learning something I didn't want to know. Generosity is easy when it flows one way, and some relationships only survive as long as you're the one holding them together. By the second month, the experiment stopped feeling clever and started feeling lonely. I deleted food delivery apps, stopped going out, and told my family I was skipping Christmas gifts to save money. My brother joked that I'd finally learned how to live realistically. My mother sighed every time I called, asking when I'd get my finances under control. She didn't ask if I was eating well or how I was holding up, just whether I could still drive her to the salon next week. Every conversation with her felt like a transaction disguised as small talk. It was strange watching them act like my situation was an inconvenience rather than a concern. I'd always been the one who organized family gatherings, paid for dinners, remembered birthdays. But when I stopped doing those things, the invitations disappeared. My cousin had a party I wasn't even told about. My brother posted a photo on social media at a restaurant we used to go to together, captioned, "Good times with real ones." That one stung. One evening, my aunt showed up again with a casserole dish. She sat at my kitchen table, looking around my quiet apartment. "You've been working too hard again," she said, not accusingly but like she already knew the truth. She never asked about my money. Instead, she told me stories about when my dad used to struggle, how he'd still find ways to laugh even when things were tight. I realized she wasn't here to pity me. She was here to remind me that love could still be gentle. Then came the real test. My mom called, frantic. "Your brother's in trouble," she said. "He needs help with rent." I almost laughed. The irony was absurd. "Mom, I don't have the money," I said, staying in character. She didn't hesitate. "Can you at least use your credit card? He's your brother. Family helps family. Family helps family. Unless you're the one who needs it, apparently." I told her I couldn't, that I was already behind on my own bills. She hung up without saying goodbye. A week later, my brother texted me. "Didn't realize you'd turn into mom's puppet." Whatever. No explanation, no concern. That was when the weight of it hit me. How years of unspoken expectations had turned me into their safety net. The minute I stopped cushioning their lives, they stopped showing up in mine. I started keeping a list. Every favor I'd done in the last few years, every bill I'd covered, every late-night rescue call. Seeing it all written down was sobering. Thousands of dollars, hundreds of hours, and not one thank you I hadn't forced. My experiment wasn't revealing something new. It was confirming what I'd been too scared to admit. My family didn't value me. They valued what I could do for them. Still, I told myself I'd finish the full 3 months. Maybe someone would surprise me. Maybe things could still change. But deep down, I already knew. When you stop being useful to some people, you stop existing. By the start of the 3rd month, my little experiment had turned into something darker. Not about money anymore, but about worth. I'd stopped hoping for phone calls. The silence had become its own kind of company. I realized how much of my identity had been tied to being the reliable one. Without that role, I didn't know who I was. One night, while eating reheated leftovers, I got a call from an unknown number. It was the hospital. My father had been admitted after collapsing at work. I hadn't spoken to him in a while, not out of anger, just distance. Divorce had left him quiet and cautious, like he didn't want to take up space in anyone's life. When I arrived, he was lying there, groggy but smiling weakly. "Didn't want to worry anyone," he murmured. "Didn't think you could help right now." That hit me harder than I expected. Even he believed I had nothing left to give, and somehow, he respected that more than anyone else. I drove him home after he was discharged, made him soup, and we talked for hours. He didn't ask about money. He asked about me. For the first time in months, I felt seen. The next week, the family found out about his hospitalization, not from me, but from him. My mother called furious that I hadn't told her sooner. My brother said I was dramatic for making it a secret. I asked if either of them had gone to visit him. They hadn't. I wanted to scream. The same people who used to preach about family loyalty couldn't even show up when it mattered. That's when I decided the experiment was over. I'd seen enough. So, I came clean. I invited everyone over for dinner. My mom showed up first, already complaining about gas prices. My brother came late, glued to his phone. My aunt, bless her, brought dessert. When we sat down, I told them the truth, that I'd been fine financially all along, that I'd only pretended to struggle to see who would actually care. The room went silent. My mother's face turned red. "You lied to us?" she snapped. "That's sick." My brother laughed, shaking his head. "So you're just manipulative now?" Only my aunt stayed quiet, watching me with something between sadness and understanding. "I wasn't trying to hurt anyone," I said. "I just wanted to know if I mattered when I wasn't paying for everything." My mom scoffed. "You've changed," she said. "Money's made you cold." She stormed out before dessert. My brother followed, muttering that I'd lost it. When the door shut, the apartment felt emptier than ever. But my aunt stayed. She put her hand on mine and said softly, "Now you know. But knowing hurts less than wondering, doesn't it?" She was right. It did hurt less, not because it was easy, but because it was honest. Since then, I've stopped being the fixer. I set boundaries, real ones. I still help when I can, but not out of guilt. My brother hasn't called in weeks. My mother sends the occasional passive-aggressive text. But I see my dad every Sunday for lunch now. He always insists on paying, even when I tell him not to. Sometimes, I wonder if pretending to be broke made me cruel. But then I remember how invisible I felt when my generosity ran out. Maybe this was the only way to see who really saw me. Because when the money disappeared, so did most of them. And the ones who stayed, they were the ones worth keeping. I exposed my boss's affair after he humiliated me at work. Humiliation has a way of sticking to you like smoke. No matter how long you shower it off, it lingers. The day my boss, Mark, mocked me in front of the entire team, that smell settled in my chest and didn't leave. He said my ambition outpaced my talent, laughed, and moved on like he hadn't just gutted me in public. I smiled through it, like everyone else, because that's what you do when your mortgage and self-worth depend on a paycheck. I'd been at the company 3 years, quietly doing double work while he collected praise for managing me. I was the detail person, the one who fixed his sloppy reports and made sure deadlines didn't collapse under his ego. And still, I was lucky to be mentored by such a visionary. That night, I sat in my car for almost an hour after work, gripping the steering wheel so hard my hands ached. It wasn't just the embarrassment. It was the realization that he enjoyed it. He liked reminding me that my job, my future, was something he controlled. But the thing about control is that it only works when the other person plays along. I went home, opened my laptop, and started rereading old messages, reports, calendar invites, anything that might show what kind of man Mark really was. I wasn't looking for revenge, not at first. I just wanted proof that I wasn't crazy, that the imbalance was real. But as I dug deeper, I started noticing things I hadn't before. He was meticulous about image, the devoted husband, the family man, the honest leader. But there were tiny cracks. Hotel receipts that didn't match conference dates. Slack messages sent late at night to clients whose names never appeared in our official lists. Expense reports marked as client dinners for two. Always in the same city. Always near a particular hotel. Then there was the message he accidentally sent to me instead of someone else. See you at 8, same place. He followed it with an excuse about wrong contact and laughed it off. I didn't. I saved it. That was when the idea started to form. Not a plan, not yet. Just an itch for balance. The next few weeks, I became invisible on purpose. I let him think he'd broken me. I smiled, nodded, stayed quiet during meetings. He relaxed. He bragged more, slipped up more. I started documenting everything. Screenshots, receipts, expense approvals. My stomach twisted each time I hit save, but the part of me that had cried in the car whispered that it was necessary. If he wanted to make me small, I'd make myself precise. Every insult, every lie, every late-night client call became data. I wasn't sure what I'd do with it yet, but I knew one day he'd regret underestimating the quiet one in the corner. The office became a stage, and I learned how to play my part. I let Mark believe I'd accepted my place, the grateful subordinate, eager to please. He started delegating more of his confidential work to me, the kind of tasks that exposed the machinery behind his reputation. I saw emails to clients that were half promises, half lies, and a calendar so padded with off-site strategy sessions that I wondered when he ever actually worked. The deeper I looked, the clearer it became. He wasn't just arrogant. He was reckless. One afternoon, I noticed something strange while organizing files. There was an invoice addressed to a luxury resort, marked under a fake client name. The signature section was blank, but the notes read, "Confirm suite for M, Taylor plus G. Ruiz, early check-in." I froze. G. Ruiz was the name of a client manager at one of our partner firms, a woman I'd met once during a joint project. She was smart, polished, married. The invoice date matched the regional training conference Mark had claimed to attend that same week. Suddenly, all the pieces connected, the late messages, the half-truths, the secretive expense forms. He wasn't just manipulating me. He was using company resources to hide an affair. My first instinct was disbelief, then anger. Anger at him for humiliating me, at myself for letting him. I spent that night piecing together a timeline, messages, receipts, calendar entries, everything that linked him to her. I knew I had something dangerous, but I didn't know what to do with it. I wasn't naive. I'd seen whistleblowers lose their jobs before. But I also couldn't stomach the thought of him continuing to mock me, to crush anyone else who crossed him. So I waited. I watched. I collected. I learned the pattern of his lies. He always had a story ready: traffic jam, delayed flights, meetings that never appeared on company schedules. When I felt confident the pattern was solid, I began to prepare a formal report. Not emotional, not vindictive, just facts. I cited policy violations, misuse of company funds, conflicts of interest, retaliatory behavior. I attached screenshots, receipts, timestamps. Every detail was neat, clean, undeniable. Before sending it, I stared at the email draft for nearly an hour. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. Part of me feared the fallout, the whispers, the possibility that people would call me bitter or petty. But the louder part remembered how it felt when he laughed at me in that meeting. I clicked send. The next morning, the HR director called me into her office. She was calm but serious. "We received your report," she said. "You've raised significant concerns." She didn't ask if it was true. She already knew it was. They told me an investigation would begin immediately and reminded me not to discuss it with anyone. As I left her office, Mark passed me in the hallway, phone pressed to his ear, smirking like always. For the first time, I smiled back, because I knew something he didn't. His story was about to collapse. The next few weeks felt like standing in the eye of a storm. HR called it a confidential internal review, but gossip has its own velocity. Whispers spread fast, even without my help. Mark's tone changed. He stopped making jokes at my expense, stopped calling me into his office for feedback sessions. For the first time, he seemed uncertain, almost human. I watched him pace during meetings, his phone buzzing nonstop. He began to overcompensate. Overly friendly greetings, sudden team lunches, random compliments that felt like desperation wrapped in politeness. One morning, I arrived to find his office door closed, blinds drawn. A meeting notice had popped up on everyone's calendars. Department restructure, leadership update. My pulse quickened. HR and two senior partners stood inside, faces taut. Mark sat stiffly, eyes hollow. The update was brief, effective immediately. Mark was taking a leave of absence due to personal matters. His responsibilities would be redistributed. The meeting ended in uneasy silence. He gathered his things quietly, avoiding everyone's gaze. When he passed my desk, our eyes met for half a second. I expected fury. Instead, I saw confusion, like he still couldn't believe someone like me had done this to him. He left without a word. That night, I got a text from an unknown number. "You didn't have to do this," it said. "You don't understand what you've started." My hands shook as I stared at it. Then came another. "I never meant to hurt you. Please don't ruin what's left of my life." I deleted both messages. He wasn't my responsibility anymore. A week later, HR confirmed the investigation had validated my report. The company terminated his contract quietly, citing ethics violations. The partner firm dissolved their agreement with us after discovering unprofessional conduct between Mark and their representative. The fallout rippled through both sides. I was offered a lateral promotion with a pay raise and an apology for the hostile environment. The HR director even thanked me for my professionalism. It sounded sterile, but I took it. And yet, when I got home that night, the victory felt heavy instead of sweet. I kept thinking about his text, about his wife and kids, faces I'd seen in company holiday cards. I didn't want to destroy him. I wanted him to stop destroying others. But maybe those two things were never separable. The truth doesn't care about your intentions once it's out in the world. It burns everything in its path. A few months later, I heard he'd moved states and started consulting independently. His LinkedIn said he was taking time for family. Good for him, I thought, and I meant it, sort of. My career moved forward, my confidence returned. But there are still moments I catch myself wondering if I went too far. Maybe there was another way. Maybe not. Sometimes, late at night, I replay that meeting in my head. The laughter, the humiliation, the way he looked down at me like I was small. Then I remember the way he looked when HR took his badge. For once, he wasn't in control. For once I was. Was I right to expose him, or did I just become the monster I wanted to destroy?
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you enjoyed the story. See you in the next one.